Welcome to Celebrating Act 2. Celebrating Act 2 is the user manual for the second half of your life.
Welcome, everybody, to Celebrating Act 2. Art, I want you to meet our special guest for today. His name is Brian Surritt.
Hi, Brian. How you doing?
Hi, Art. Good, thank you.
Brian is a father of three. He works as a marketing guy in a software company, and he is also a newly minted senior, if you will. He's just turned
Really?
51. Did I get that right, Brian? 51?
51,
Well,
yes.
Yeah.
wait. On behalf of John and myself and the Celebrating Act 2 family, let us welcome you officially and offer you no, we're going to give you a 50-year membership into the Celebrating Act 2 Club.
Oh,
Oh, very good, thank you.
Welcome.
oh, you are so lucky, Brian. And Art,
Uh,
I have to talk to you about business because you shouldn't be giving those away.
okay. We'll talk later.
Anyway, Brian, how's it feel? First, before we get into the COVID-19 and the dealing with the coronavirus as a father and a businessman and all of that stuff, how's it feel to be over 50 all of a sudden?
Well, those AARP mailers, they're going right into the round file still. I'm not paying a whole lot of attention to those, but I'm starting to feel it a little bit. There's some things happening, like all three boys played Little League, and I coach them, and takes a little bit longer to warm up practice used to. The shoulder hurts a little bit longer after practice, more than it used to. Can't work in the yard all day like I used to be able to. So I'm noticing some signs of being over 50.
How about in terms of retirement? Have you even thought about retirement? I know when I turned 50, I was too busy with worrying about how the kids are going to get into college and all that other stuff to worry about retirement. But have you guys thought about it yet?
It's there. It's back of the mind, not necessarily front of the mind. I mean, we're trying to plan for it, but it's. I think right now it's a balancing act. It's trying to enjoy life today,
Right.
but not sacrifice tomorrow. Right? Robbing Peter to pay Paul.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's a common conversation around here is what do we want to spend money on today that takes away from what we can spend tomorrow? And it's a balancing act. We've tried to diversify. We've tried to manage, some investments and do things wisely, but we keep dipping into it, just to take care of stuff at the house or with the kids are expensive with the kids. It's really expensive.
Brian,
And
Brian, you're part of a group sometimes referred to as a sandwich generation, where you're still taking care of younger kids and worried about are they going to move out and things like that. You're not quite there yet, but also you have your folks who are getting older now as well. How how do you think about those things, and maybe possibly think about what your responsibilities might be in that area?
I do. I see it with my parents. I see it catching up with like my mom in particular, and I worry a little bit about that. And what does that strategy look like 10 years from now, 5 years from now? Um, do we need to start figuring stuff like that out? My parents live up in Sacramento, and my sisters are up there, so they probably worry about it more than I do, just because they're closer, they're there. But it's definitely something that the concern is that it could all hit at the same time. I have a 7-year-old, and when he's in college, 11 years from now, that absolutely could be when we're having to make some decisions with my folks. So it's there.
It's interesting because 11 years from now, when your youngest is in college, you will be 62 and you'll be right on the cusp of saying, should I take Social Security? Shouldn't I? Do I have a pension? You'll be doing, you'll be in a whole new world, thinking about a whole new set of things that you are thinking about now.
Yeah, and so trying to pre-plan for that has been, some of the stuff that we talk about. We went and got a financial advisor a couple of years ago to try and help come up with some of those strategies and what that would look like. But it's funny, since we've talked to him, the goal line has moved. I mean, I think the goal line started with we will fully fund our kids' graduate, our kids' college, and we will, and I want to retire at 62, 63. In the what's been 7, 8 years since we started those conversations, the goal line has changed. Absolutely.
Well, I got news for you. No matter how old you get, the goal line is going to change.
Yeah, not only that, but it's kind of interesting, and probably one of the reasons why we're delighted to speak to you today and get your perspectives as entering something we've been in for a decade or more now, is that there's a lot more resources today than there were. I remember when I was 50, and I barely thought about some of these things, although I was smart enough, lucky enough to have paid off the kids' education contemporaneously because I was having some really good years. So rather than I had them take loans to have some skin in the game, but I actually was able to pay off their education. But I still have a mortgage, so I didn't plan that much in advance. But today there's so much information out there, and that's one of the things that Celebrating Act Two tries to provide is some of that knowledge, some of that user manual kind of stuff, so that you don't have to reinvent it. So, uh, what are some of the things that did you ever think about maybe moving to Arizona or something when you retire, or you're pretty much going to stay where you are? Have you thought about those kind of things?
We've actually been kind of messing around with the idea of like a Colorado or a Montana.
Mm,
But my grandparents did that. They did the Arizona thing, and they had a pretty good time with it. It was almost like they were in a country club. They lived in a mobile home community that was had a lot of activities. There was my grandfather played golf every day, and he did shuffleboard, and my grandmother had her bridge groups, and they would get out and exercise and have uh, quite a good time. So I would go visit them, and I always wondered what it would be like, but they really looked like they were enjoying themselves, and they probably did it for about 25 years.
mm,
So um, I look at that and wonder if that's not a good way to exit out. They seem to be having a lot of fun, made a lot of friends, had a lot of travel adventures with some of these people in the wintertime, or summertime, actually summertime in Arizona. They would get out and they'd go see Canada and go travel the world, Europe and Africa and so forth with these people. They had a great time.
Good for them. Good for them.
mm.
I'm glad they did that. Hey, Brian, let's move on to why we called you in the first place, and that is you're a working guy, and we're all hunkered down with COVID-19, the coronavirus. How has it affected your job?
We all have. So this is what, week 4 now that we've all been working from home.
Yeah.
That's been a challenge. We've talked about that. I feel like I'm busier than I've been before, but the productivity has stayed the same. There's more video conferencing, there's more meetings, there's more talking about what you're going to do, and less time to actually do it. So I feel like that's been the big challenge. Has been the time it takes to stay connected.
Mm.
Do you actually know anybody who has come down with the virus?
I don't. I was looking up statistics on that and wondering why I hadn't. There's only 10 people in our zip code that have it. So,
Mm.
uh, and I think in the entire city of Vista, there's only 40 right now, something around there. So, I don't know anybody that has it. Although I was sick in November, with a lot of the symptoms, and there's a lot of friends of mine and coworkers that think I had it. I don't know.
By the way,
And
just to
that,
let you know, I just interviewed somebody, not on air, but privately, and she and her husband and a group of about 4 or 5 people who had recently come back from Asia in December had a terrible flu, they called it, and eventually they found out that unfortunately none of them had it, and her husband almost went to the emergency room because he was having trouble breathing, and they took care of it home. And there are a lot of people who think they had it early, and apparently most people did not. It's only been since February that it's been
well,
around here.
yeah, I think part of our problem today is that nobody knows the truth from China.
Right.
They're saying that we didn't hear about it for 6 weeks, that China didn't tell anybody about it for the first 6 weeks. Well, who knows that it was 6 weeks? Maybe it was 6 months. Unfortunately, I don't think we can trust what China says. So
Right.
that's neither here nor there. But so your friends are hunkering down. Are they all surviving? Anybody lost their job because of the hunkering down, closing businesses?
There's a few friends of mine that have been furloughed, so that's just a temporarily been unassigned,
Yeah, but
but they
no
haven't
paycheck.
lost the job. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think we come out of this, the job was at this point still going to be there. I know at my company we're talking about what we can do. Are there cuts we can make? Um, so this reminds me of 2008 when we had I think they called it the swine flu, and we had a pretty good recession that came off of that. And we've tried to position ourselves to take advantage of that. There's a lot of companies that come out of that and they go through a cost restructuring. They look at everything that they're spending money on, and that's when they go through those exercises, their habits change. They start changing the way that they run their business processes. They change the way that they're doing their business. They look at they take a look at how they can be more efficient and how they can do more with less. These are those opportunities that I think present themselves to some companies to be more forward thinking.
That's an interesting perspective, a business perspective. Do you think, based on where your business is in the worldwide pantheon of the economy, do you think when things start to recover, more businesses will, what do you call it, combine and lay off and do that, or do you think there more businesses will expand? Do you have any sense of that?
Boy, I don't see a lot of expansion. I mean, there are a lot of companies that I think came into this with with a war chest, right? They had quite a bit of cash on hand, and it certainly does present opportunities there to go snatch up some other companies. Um, yeah, I, I can see a consolidation happening where some companies are bought up, but expansion, I'm not sure.
Yeah. Well,
Although we started at least throwing out some hiring ads. We started posting some because we figured there's probably a lot of really good talent
Mm.
and on the market right now that we could maybe potentially take advantage of when we come out of this. If we can maybe get front of mind for these people, we can snatch up some pretty good talent to come work for us.
that's great. I appreciate the business perspective because uh, there's all that business news that you get on television, all the pundits, all they're all looking at the Dow and the S&P, but they don't have the feet on the ground perspective that you just gave us. So I appreciate that. Tell me about the kids working from home. How do you deal with the kids? Your kids are out of school. Am I correct?
Out of school, the virtual learning started this week. That's actually helped a lot. So for the first 3 weeks, there really wasn't a curriculum. There wasn't, so we were kind of on our own. And both my wife and I working from home as well. That was challenging, and it was just, and you felt guilty. You felt like you couldn't give them the time that they needed, and we were wasting time. So now that they have a curriculum, they have some video chats with their teachers and classmates. They've got assignments that they have to do every day. They looked forward to it. I was surprised. There has been no arguing or having to convince them to get their work done. They have so far. This is the first week, but they've been excited to get back to the routine.
Well, you actually you have like three boys, right? So they have some playmates, but they haven't been. I assume they haven't been meeting with other kids their own age. Is that correct?
No, we've just started letting them, kind of organizing with the other parents and doing some virtual,
Virtual,
some,
yeah.
Skype or Zoom or something where they can.
Or Fortnite.
Yeah, well, Fortnite is as well. That's, they do talk a lot, and that's a big part of their social life.
Right.
When they get home, yeah, and now you can't go next door and go play, so they do rely on that. Matter of fact, last week the Xbox broke down,
Wow.
and right, and I held out for about 2 hours before I made an emergency run to go get a new one.
And you risk life and limb,
Yeah.
life and limb, because
Yeah,
that was important.
it was.
Good. And last question that I have for you is, do you wear a face mask when you go out?
I do. So, but I didn't start wearing a face mask until it was mandated. But probably waited a little long on that. But yeah, and I notice everybody is now when we go to the store, when you go outside. I've never understood why they wear them in their car. but I am bringing a face mask out now. Yeah.
Oh, good. Good. And thank you for those of us in the vulnerable generation. We thank you for that. Art, did you have anything, any questions for Brian?
Now, I found it fascinating because I was thinking back in some of the answers you were giving, Brian, as to we've never faced this. We had 9/11, but 9/11, the buildings came down, but basically people got back to work, to social interaction fairly quickly. Now, it's if you go out, you have, particularly if you're older than you are by 10 or 15 years, like such as our category, you can't go out and feel really comfortable that you can interact again. I used to go to the beach once a week to practice Tai Chi. They've closed down the beaches, and I don't want to be near other people, so we're pretty much at home. So your perspectives of a situation that John and I have never been through before have been fascinating. I thank you for that.
Good. Appreciate it. And Brian, congratulations on your new membership, your
Yes,
new free membership in Celebrating Act Two.
right.
Thank you very much.
You are our charter member today. Today, okay, is you the charter member. You'll always be numero uno.
No, very good. And remember, Celebrating Act Two is the user manual for the second half of your life. Right? You have turned 50, second half of your life. Art will explain that later.
Yeah. I'll have my people call you people.
I, I could use the instruction manual. Thank you.
Right. Well,
Good. Well, Brian, I was going to say, go ahead, Art.
well, this has been great, John. Brian's a great find. Thanks for digging him up.
Now we'll put him to bed again so he can go back to work.
Okay.
Thanks for interrupting your day to talk to us, Brian.
I
Take
appreciate
care.
it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
For more on Celebrating Act Two, visit our webpage, follow us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube, and tell your friends. Celebrating Act Two is the user manual for the second half of your life.